All right, and welcome. My name is Josh Rich, and I am the host of the Champions Corner. And I got to tell you, today I am so excited because I have my favorite guest, probably ever, that I can have joining me this evening, and that is Kim Rich. For full disclosure, yes, we have the same last name because she is my wife. So Kim. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I am great. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. And so, as we are in the midst of Women's History Month, one of the questions that I have for you is as you reflect upon women's history, why is this month so significant for you?
Well, I think Women's History Month is significant for me because I'm very keenly aware of the women who have made sacrifices, specifically when it comes to working in corporate America, to step away from their home lives, to step away from potentially being a wife and a mom, to step into a career, to grow and to progress. Um, and so that's why Women's History Month is important to me. It's important for me to take the moment to look back, to reflect on the shoes that I'm stepping into, the footprints that have already been made in the sand or the snow for me, and to press ahead.
Got it. Got it. And so to that point, I know that you are uh, I guess I can say a big fan of the brand Supermom,
I
and
am.
so okay, and so I guess I could draw a couple of conclusions as to why, but in your own words, why is that something that resonates with you so much?
I would say Supermom, the brand Supermom resonates with me so much because I feel like it encompasses everything that I have, and not to toot my own horn, but what I'm trying to be, what I feel like I am. Being a super mom means that you have many jobs, you have many responsibilities, and I feel like it's important to celebrate moms who are working, who are entrepreneurs or work in corporate America or wherever it is that they work, in addition to taking care of their home life, taking care of their children, taking care of their significant other, um, and just being all around in every place at every time as best as they possibly can.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of moving parts there. And so here's the interesting thing. And I know that we've spoken about this too. Even within the home, like the division of labor, so to speak, who does what. And we have our debates, but I know you feel like you do a whole lot in the house. And I mean, there's no argument from me, with that in terms of, what it is that you do there. But what I thought was a little sobering is that when we think about women in the workforce, when we think about careers and so forth, I was reading recently that I think in 2020, as it relates to the pay gap between men and women, that there was about 30 years of progress that is estimated to have been erased in terms of the pay gap. When you hear those numbers, what do you think?
When I hear those numbers, I'm a little frustrated simply because I know that the change in the pay gap and the change in the workforce for women in 2020 and 2021 changed significantly given the circumstances that went along with COVID. A lot
Hmm.
of moms made the decision that they were going to step away from their full time jobs, their part time job, their businesses to take care of their children who were now home full time, going to school virtually. They're trying to figure out homeschooling. We had that in our own home. And luckily, I was in a position where I had a really great job and I didn't necessarily have to step away from my job in order to take care of our children. But a lot of women have had to make those sacrifices and has dramatically cut their home budget, right? Because now you go from having two salaries to one. Um, And that affects your household. That can affect how you're strategizing on paying bills, paying off debt, saving money, preparing for your future. And it's unfortunate that so many women have had to make the decision that I have to be right now, I have to be a mom first. I can't be a working mom because I'm in a job where it's frowned upon for me to be a mom before I'm an employee. And I think that it's a bit short-sighted in some of the and when it comes to these businesses, because in a year or a year and a half, when things get closer to normal, whatever that timeline is, and you need someone to work for you, guess what? That person that had to step away from that position, that mom that had to step away from the position, she's going to think twice before she applies again or before she refers a friend to your business if you had an attitude that we need you to do work first before you take care of your household first. I was raised that I was raised in a Christian household, and I was raised that you're supposed to take care of family first. Family comes before any other priorities or responsibilities. It's family first. And so for us to be in 2020 and 2021, and people still aren't considering the fact that people have lives outside of work, it's astonishing to me. I don't understand it at all. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was so much that has happened as a result of COVID. Frankly, I don't think that the workforce as we know it, in terms of how we actually work, I don't think that that will really be the same because there was so much that has happened, and quite frankly, some trends that I believe were already starting to come into fruition. I think we're actually expedited as a result of companies having to make a pivot and having more people, work from home. But nevertheless, the statistics already show that women were impacted the most in terms of jobs. I've heard stories of doctors um, more or less pausing their careers
Mhm.
because they needed to, and I know that they wanted to, in that sense, in those stories, in all fairness, they wanted to be able to tend to their children, but at the same time, what does that say about society when you have someone that has done so much schooling and so forth, but nevertheless, they're the ones that's expected to, I guess, really bear the brunt of responsibilities in a household as it relates to the rearing of children. So that's something I'm going to continue to be, watching in the coming year, or so to see how things happen, because I think there's some unintended consequences when whenever anyone steps out of the workforce. So, for example, I know that when you're applying for jobs, if you apply for a job and there is a gap in employment, then that could raise some eyebrows. Talk to me a little bit about what you think the perception may be for women that have stepped out of the workforce, or had to, just because of the circumstances, and them getting back in the workforce now or in the coming year. Do you think that they're going to encounter some challenges because of that?
So I think that there's two answers to that question. There's what I hope will happen versus what will probably happen. What I hope will happen when it comes to women that have had to step away from working to take care of their home life, I hope that they're able to apply to jobs. The resumes come in, they look at what their skills are, what the qualifications are for the position, and match this person's qualifications and their experience with what you need versus, there was a space in here. If you have a question about the space or the time in between the employment, ask. 9 times out of a 10, working moms are going to tell you, look, I have small children. We had COVID going on. We had to take our kids out of school. We had to do some things differently. So I had to step away from my job. But we shouldn't be penalized for having to step away, because the reality of the situation is that if we don't, who's going to take care of our children? Who's going to take care of our household? A lot of women now, their moms, if they're a working mom, 9 times out of 10, their mom is still working. they might be of retirement age, but they might not. So they can't send their children to grandma's house, or they can't send their children to their aunt or their uncle's house, because those people have to work as well. So I would hope that that would be the response when women are trying to apply again and to get back into the job market. But unfortunately, what I think will happen with some women is those resumes will get set to the side, um, and maybe they'll get looked at eventually. Maybe they'll just pick another candidate for the position. But honestly, I just think that it's short sighted for working moms to be overlooked when it comes to applying for jobs, and for them to have the same opportunities that someone who doesn't have children, male or female, should have. I feel like as a working mom, for me personally, I'm able to multitask, sometimes circles around people who don't have children or don't have a husband or don't have the responsibilities that I have at home. And that's because, guess what? On a daily basis, outside of work, I have to multitask. I have to help Kelsey or Caleb get on their shoes or their socks while trying to think of what I'm going to grab them for breakfast, or what they're going to eat when it's time for me to pick them up for dinner. I can't just do one thing at a time. That's not the life of a working mom. It just doesn't happen that way. So if I can do that at home, best believe when I get into the office and I get settled and I get situated, there are plenty of things that I can do at the same time. And my multitasking skills are probably going to be a little bit more advanced than someone who doesn't have the experiences that I have at home. That's just my perspective. It's probably a little one-sided, but that's just what I think, because being a working mom, it's having two jobs at one time. You have the home life job, and then you have what you have to do when you go into the office.
So I'm probably going to be a little jaded because I feel like I'm walking into this one, but but as it relates to well, let me shift for a second before I go there. So it sounds like you're making a clear correlation between what it is that you do outside of work, as in terms of having transferable skills that you're bringing into the workplace. And
Mhm.
so those I heard you talk about multitasking, then that's something that becomes more of a value add with you versus someone that doesn't necessarily have that experience in that way. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, the working mom has to multitask. We have to be organized. We have to deal with logistics, getting one child to jujitsu, the other child has a different activity after school, or one has tutoring, the other one doesn't, or one of them wants peanut butter and jelly, the other one wants a grilled cheese. All of these things, these are all things that, yeah, they're not necessarily what you do in a corporate job, but the skills, as you said, are transferable. Logistics, being able to coordinate travel, um, multitasking, being able to do multiple projects at one job. Those things are important. Being organized, being able
Mhm.
to create to-do lists and check everything off on the to-do list. All those things working moms do on a daily basis can be transferred to a job at someone's corporate office. Absolutely.
So, okay, I'm just going to have to ask a question. So, we're talking a lot about working moms, and so I don't hear that term associated quite the same with dads in terms of working dads. Talk to me about that. What's going on there?
So I think working dads is more of it's probably a newer concept. It probably isn't a phrase that's necessarily coined just yet, but I think that it's becoming more apparent. I think a lot of dads are starting to step up when it comes to responsibilities at home, taking off if the child is sick and the wife is working, um, leaving work early if necessary, being available for phone calls if something happens with the child at school. All of those things are part of the working dad. The difference is that we live in a culture that for so long women worked, were homemakers and necessarily didn't work full-time jobs. So there's this expectation that whenever a child gets sick or whenever there's something that goes on with the child, the mom is going to be the one that has to step away from the job. Well, I think that we're getting to a point where more fathers are saying, well, my wife doesn't have to step away every time. I'm available. I want to be there for my children just as much as their mom is. And I commend men that are doing that. I think that it's awesome. I think that it's amazing. And I'm hopeful that in the future that becomes more of a common thing where men are stepping away just as much as women are. I know that when we had our kids, there weren't any doctor's appointments that you missed. If you missed one, it was probably a few, and it was for a reason, for some reason. But for the most part, you were there during the doctor's appointments. You were there when they were born and going to the pediatrician. And it's important. I feel like it's important not only for the wife to be able to feel like she's supported in that way, but also for the children to see that these are responsibilities that parents have, not just mommy or just daddy, but both parents. Um, that's my perspective on that.
Yeah, so I think in society, just in general, there have been, I guess, the traditions, right, in terms of how the division, and I'll use that term again, division of labor, has been divided within a household to where one spouse is expected to do certain things, such as uh, taking care of things in the kitchen and so forth. And I saw recently that Burger King got in trouble because there was apparently a tweet that was sent out that said something along the lines of, women are supposed to be in the kitchen, or women belong,
Wow.
the kitchen. And quite frankly, I think that, I mean, everything I read, it was a mistake. It was something that was taken out of context. But and when I say out of context, was that I think it was tied to some type of scholarship fund or something that they were trying to do something positive to say that, hey, these are certain roles, but there are unintended consequences, right? If you are not careful with what it is that you're saying. So, that happens for companies big and small. And we all have to be mindful of what it is that, that we're saying. But historically, based off of the context, I think a lot of people drew an immediate parallel to really what they felt was a sexist statement for that to be said. And so, I think that's important that people are realizing that, hey, you can't just say what comes to mind or maybe
No.
accepted years ago. You have to be very intentional about what it is that you are, communicating, because talk about having a inclusive, workforce, more inclusive, society, and so forth like that. You look like you were about to say something.
No, I just think that it's very interesting that um, something like that would be said from a business, especially because we're living in a day and an age where there are just as many male chefs. Honestly, there are probably more men that work as chefs than there are women. So it would be just really interesting to me that, and small-minded, honestly, to say that women or men specifically belong in the kitchen. I believe that whoever wants to cook can cook. Um, you
Right.
don't have to be male or female. Our son likes jujitsu, but he also likes to cook. And
Right.
that's something that he's interested in. And
Yeah.
so, what would I look like telling him, well, you're a boy, so you can't cook? Well, what
Right.
happens when he grows up and he moves out and he doesn't know how to make his own meals? Is
Hmm.
he going to come to our house every day and expect for mommy to still cook for him until he finds a wife? That makes no sense. I mean, like, does that mean that he also shouldn't learn how to do laundry? What happens when he goes to college?
Yeah.
Those are skills that everyone needs. Being able to take care of your own home are skills that should not just apply to women or men. I was raised in a household where my mom cooked, but my mom also knew how to put furniture together. My mom also knew how to hang pictures on the wall or put up curtains if my dad wasn't available or something needed to be done right away or something fell apart. So I think that you're doing children a disservice when you're categorizing these home skills based on male or female. Definitely, both children need to learn how to do all those things. My dad taught me how to change my tire. What if I'm stuck on the side of the road and I'm waiting for AAA or whatever kind of service to change my tire, but I know that I can do it myself? Do I wait an hour plus for AAA, or do I just change the tire? I'd rather just change the tire. I'd rather be able to go to the I mean, Josh, you've been with me to the mechanic, and I know what it is that is wrong with my car when we get there. I
Mhm.
don't have to wait for them to give me an assessment. And those are things that my mom taught me. My mom's dad liked to race cars, and so she learned a lot about cars as a child. And she made sure that her daughters knew a lot about cars so people wouldn't take advantage of us when it came time for us to get maintenance and repairs on our vehicles.
Right. And so, I think that that also speaks to gender norms, right? Just in a
Hmm.
sense. And so we have to be mindful, of those things, because otherwise, we are perpetuating stereotypes that
Hmm.
wrong. And so, I think it takes a level of intentionality to be able to do so. So just kind of going back for a moment, because we talked about the pay gap, and we also talked about some of those skills that are transferable in terms of working moms and so forth. We also talked about the working dads, or the lack of that term more so being coined and
Hmm.
widely used. But there's something else that I think is important to note as it relates to COVID and the pandemic. Again, I was reading something that said that last year it was almost a record year for businesses being started and so forth. And so I personally just happen to know that you also launched a business during the pandemic. Talk to us a little bit about that experience in terms of, I guess, just getting started with a business. I don't think that you saw yourself as being an entrepreneur before then.
Hmm.
So I guess what changed for you?
Well, during the pandemic, I worked previously full time as an executive assistant for and an executive vice president and and a president of a large company. And working as an executive in the office is quite different than what happens when COVID happened. So before COVID, it was, we went to the office every day. I had responsibilities every day. We had a lot of in-person meetings, so scheduling and doing the logistics for those meetings. Um, but when COVID first began, everything kind of got quiet because no one knew what to do. No one knew what was safe. If we could be in settings together, if we needed to be separated. So it kind of put things on an abrupt pause. Um, I began to work remotely immediately. I think it was probably February or March when we started to work remotely. And just like I had to figure out how it was that I could support the people that I was responsible for supporting, they had to figure out what things could they do on their own versus
Right.
what things they needed me to do for them remotely. So we kind of went through a transitional period there. And once we got the swing of things, I realized that, hey, I have some extra time here that I could potentially use to do some other things. What initially happened was we were connected with some family friends who were in the process of starting a church, and they needed help with social media things. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm a social media professional. I wouldn't say that I'm a digital marketer professional, but I like social media. My preference is Instagram. That's
Mhm.
where I usually am. I like to scroll and look at pictures and watch videos. And so they asked me to kind of help in that regard. And it blossomed into this passion that I didn't know I had.
Got it.
So I
Got
helped
it.
them with social media. It was, they weren't paying me. It was just my time that I was volunteering. I really enjoyed it. And then some other opportunities became available, where I could do help with some social media things, as well as helping with acquiring guests for a virtual television show. And so that's kind of when the business began.
So let me just pause there for a second. So in your mind, because of how things were changing, because from what I've seen, a lot of people, they say, look, they didn't know what was going to happen with their jobs. So that kind of spurred them to want to start a business. Uh,
Mhm.
was that was that a part of your calculus and in that way, that you wanted to start a business kind of as a plan B or a backup plan, or you were just doing this because this became more or less a passion that you discovered? What would you say?
For for me, it became more of a passion rather
Mhm.
than I didn't feel threatened at all in any way as far as my career was
Okay.
concerned, as far as my job was concerned, and the people that I supported made it very clear that my role was necessary and what and the assistance that I provided to them was necessary. So it wasn't necessarily that I felt like I was in danger of losing my job. It was more of a passion project that kind of just grew into entrepreneurship. And honestly, I feel like that's probably the best way for you to enter entrepreneurship. I feel like if you're in a position where you need that income, you need to be paid for your services, and it's like you're hustling, trying to start this business because this is all you have. um, you don't enjoy it as much.
Mm.
And so I have really enjoyed entrepreneurship while still working full time, because it was a passion project. It was something that I was interested in, something that was fun for me. And since I began, I realized, okay, I need to get some additional skills. So now I'm attending University of Miami. I'm in a digital marketing boot camp to learn more about social media as well as digital marketing in general. And the money from my business has been able to pay for those courses and me not have to worry about taking out a student loan or anything like that. So if nothing else, if I get nothing else out of the deal, I got to pay for my education and didn't have to take out any additional loans or anything like that, while doing something that I have grown to love. That's fun for me.
That's great. That's great. So, I heard you talk about the University of Miami, and I think University of Miami, they have a great program, they have a great reputation, and so forth. But I think the marketplace is starting to change.
Mm-hmm.
Change in the sense that there was a premium that was placed on having a college degree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was almost like a prerequisite, more or less,
Mm-hmm.
for being able to obtain or be considered for certain jobs. I think that's starting to change a little bit. Google made an announcement, I think, at some point last year. I don't remember the exact
They
month,
did.
but they are creating their own certification program, and
Yes.
they're going to weigh people that have completed that program, or the completion of that program, I think even more so than a college degree. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be drastically different in terms of the cost that someone would pay to be able to complete a program or complete a certification through Google. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what do you say about that? I mean, are businesses overvaluing the college education in 2021, or no, they're on the right track there?
So I think that it depends on the industry and it depends on your job. Um, I graduated from college in 2020, in addition to being a working mom, working remotely, COVID. Um, I graduated from school. I got an associate's degree from American Military University, online courses. And that's important, right? And that's significant. But the funny thing is, for me, for my career, I don't necessarily feel like me having or not having the degree has delayed my trajectory
Mhm.
based on where I started. I did what I could to gain as many skills as I could over the time that I started in the workforce. So everywhere I went, I made sure I learned as much as I could. And I feel like that has allowed me to progress the way in which I have. I know that I was in positions where my friends graduated from college and they were applying to jobs, but I was making more money than them. And that was because, depending on where I went, my experience outweighed their 4-year college degree, because this person has a 4-year college degree, but they don't have any experience doing the work that you need them to do. They can't just hit the ground running and complete the projects because they don't have. I feel like sometimes when you graduate from college, you don't have all the skills you need for the jobs that you're specifically applying for. So
You
there's
don't,
a learning curve there.
right.
Yes,
And
there's a
so,
learning curve there. So
mhm,
when it comes to um, now these certification programs that you're seeing more of, um, I know that University of Miami not only has a digital marketing one, but they also have one that's IT based. I think that a lot of people are going to be more interested in getting the certifications versus the 4-year degree, depending on what their industry is. I
mhm,
know in my classes for digital marketing, there are a lot of people that are older, have been in the have been working for some time, 15, some of them 20 years, and they never got a degree. And so now they're in a position where they've kind of hit a plateau, and in order for them to get to the next step, they have to get some type of certification. So that's why they're taking this program, because it's like, do I pay for a 4-year degree, or do I pay for a program that's a year or 9 months? My program is 9 months, I believe.
mhm.
So do I pay for a 9 months program that's going to be significantly cheaper, but get me a bigger bang for my buck in the next year to 2 years because I have this certification? So like when I graduate from University of Miami, those Google programs that you're talking about, I'll be able to sit for the certifications for those because of the courses that I took at University of Miami.
Got
Now,
it.
someone that's graduating from college, they might necessarily have that opportunity, might have to take some additional courses before they can get those certifications.
Got it. So I think that's going to be a game changer in terms of how education is really marketed and quite frankly how it's being done. And the reason why I say that is because there are a lot of people just based off of the workplace or the job market, the trends that we're seeing. Some jobs are becoming more automated. You know, at this
Mm-hmm.
because of breakthroughs with technology, and those breakthroughs
Mm-hmm.
have consequences. They can be positive,
Mm-hmm.
they can be negative, but at the same time, they have consequences. And in some ways, that may mean the displacement of people that have been working in roles, for years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if those folks are not at the point where they're ready to retire just yet, then they may need to be looking at these different certification programs, or quite frankly, making a career change or
Mm-hmm.
and in doing so, they're going to need some training. So instead of waiting for a company to potentially provide that training, it may be beneficial for people to really take I'll just say take the initiative to
Mm-hmm.
some programs, like that. And so cost, that's always going to be a factor. But it sounds like one of the unintended consequences of you starting your business when you did was that you were able to generate some revenue so that you can fund this certification program that you're going through. So I think that there's a story there for sure, and you being able to do so is really good. Is really good. So as we get ready to close up, here I didn't hear you really say it one way or the other, but in terms of a college degree in the next 3 to 5 years, do you see it as being overrated or underrated? Okay, what would you say?
Honestly, I'd say it's probably going to be a bit overrated. Um, we see what Google has done, from basic searching online to them being able to store your information, your passwords. They are a force to be reckoned with when it comes to digital marketing, when it comes to Google searches. Google is a noun. Like, it's like a noun, it's a verb, it's an adverb, it's all of the above. When you're
Mhm.
talking to people about doing research, trying to find things online, the first thing people say is, why don't you just Google it? Just Google it. Google is a noun. And so when it comes to these certifications that they're offering, and now these opportunities that are coming available where you can work remotely, the digital marketing space specifically has blown up in the last year, probably advancing digital marketing 5 to 10 years,
Mm,
specifically in this 1 year, because everything had to be done virtually. These smaller businesses that didn't necessarily have a social media, a virtual footprint, have had to hit the ground running. They've had to hire people in digital marketing or hire agencies to do these marketing functions for them. And these positions aren't going to go away when COVID is over and we're able to safely go outside again. These
yeah.
positions are here to stay, because the younger generations, we're microwave generations. We want it now. I don't want to have to look online and drive to the store and walk down the aisle to find it. No, I want to order it. I want it at my house in an hour or the next day, whatever the shipping is. I want the fastest shipping, and I want to move on from that. And so if you don't have a social media, a digital footprint, a campaign that you're running, it's going to be harder for you to stay relevant given the trajectory of the way things are going when it comes to social media and digital marketing.
Wow. So I hear you. I do. And I think you can make an argument either way. I just think that just as businesses have to adapt and make adjustments to what it is that their consumers are looking for. So case in point, I mean, you just talked about looking online instead of walking through the store, being able to order what it is that you want and then have it delivered. I'm reading and seeing that companies are investing in drone technology, right? To be able to
Mm-hmm.
make deliveries and so forth. So 3 to 5 years, I mean, I just thought the Jetsons, when, I guess when we were growing up, that was so futuristic, right?
It's
But
really not now.
some of those concepts are starting to come into fruition, at this point. So I'm going to say that a college degree is going to be underrated. I'm just going to say that, in the sense that if colleges make the pivot and they make more of these certification programs, I think that they're going to find that there's going to be a lot more people that are going to need this type of training
Mm-hmm.
versus the traditional waiting until someone has finished high school and now they're going to move into the undergrad program of a 4-year institution. I think that the colleges that are going to be able to make that pivot, make that adjustment, so that they can service both. And if we need an example as to how that can be done, I mean, look, we don't have to go that far back in history to see that there can be a hybrid model that is put in
Mm-hmm.
place for education. And just like you talked about with the University of Miami, being able to do that program remotely. So if those that are working are looking for programs like that, and you have the traditional four-year schools that are able to put in that type of hybrid model, I think that well, I was going to say their degrees, but I think that their certifications, okay, if I can just add that there, is going to be a game changer if they can
Mm-hmm.
do that. Obviously, pricing will have to be adjusted, as well. But I don't think that has to mean the end of colleges as we quote unquote know it. So
I don't think that it'll be the end of college. I would agree. I mean, like, I don't want my doctor to have a 9 month program. I want my doctor to have a 4 year degree
right, yeah,
and a residency and everything else that he or she is supposed to have. I don't want a microwave doctor. Please don't give me one. Please give me the one that has done all of the
okay,
necessary, has taken all the necessary courses and gone through everything that they need to do in order to perform medical whatever. I just don't give me the 9 month doctor. I'll take the 9 month digital marketer or IT person that has already has experience working in corporate America. It could be that they're changing careers, whatever it is. I'll take that. Just don't give me the 9 month doctor. I'd rather not have the 9 month doctor. I think that for those types of professions, it's necessary for those individuals to stay in school for whatever the normal process is for them. But I think for some of these other things, we're beginning to see that you don't necessarily need to have a 4 year degree in order to get social, to work in social media, to work in digital marketing, to work in IT. If you're able to get these certifications and the other things that you need in order to progress in your career.
Excuse me. So to that point, okay, I know when I was in undergrad, one of the questions that we would have would be about the prerequisites, the classes that you're taking your freshman, your sophomore year, and some of those classes, it's like, oh my goodness, like how am I going to use this? I think there was, and look, I don't know how colleges really put together the rationale for that, but if there was some areas to where I think you could reevaluate, okay, these courses are really needed versus those that aren't, so that you can get people out there in the work world sooner. I think looking at the freshman, sophomore year, making sure that people are really taking classes that are more so going to be in alignment with their major specifically, and they're not trying to figure out how this is going to work. I think that there's an opportunity there, and that way. So
Yeah.
just that's my thought on that. So as we get ready to close up here, for those that are watching, and you talked about your digital marketing experience and so forth. So if someone wants to get in contact with you because they need some assistance in that way, how can they reach you?
So you can find me generally via email is probably the easiest way. So you can email me at Kim, so KIM, at therichwife.com. And that is THERICHWYFE.com. Or you can find me on Instagram, The Rich Wife. Facebook is the same, The Rich Wife. And LinkedIn is Kimberly D. Rich on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Okay. All right. And so, lastly, and I'll give the last word to you. In terms of, maybe there is a mother that's listening right now, and so you said some things that resonated, with her, but nonetheless, she needs some encouragement in terms of trying to balance out everything, because let's face it, it's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
To balance work, and then also our personal lives, and so forth like that. What would you say to someone that may be feeling like they're struggling and they just need some additional direction or support?
So the first thing I would say to working moms or moms in general that feel like they are struggling, whether it be because of COVID or just life in general, the reality is that um, you're going to get through it. It's going to be okay. You can do it. I know you feel like you're trying to spin 10 plates at a time, and one of them is going to fall. And guess what? One of them might fall, but guess what? It's not the end of the world. You're okay, and you'll get another day to start over, start fresh, and spin those plates once again. I think it's important for moms to have sister circles or mom circles, other moms, other people that they can connect with, that they can share their time with, whether it be the happy times or the times that you're struggling. It's important. My friends have really helped me during the pandemic, during COVID, and all of the transitions that we went through during the time that we've been home and the time that our children have been home. So it's important to have a circle of friends that you can communicate with, that you can put out your Batman signal for, and say, I need help, even if it's I just need someone to listen to me for 5 seconds so I can vent. It's important for you to have those circles. And it's okay if you can only do it virtually, if you can do it in person, however it is that you feel like you need to do it. Me and my friends, we have text message groups. We text each other throughout the day. We try to make times where we FaceTime each other just to to put eyes on them and say, hey, are you okay? Let me see you. How are you looking today? It looks like you had those clothes on yesterday. You might need to take a shower. Whatever it is that can help you to get through those days,
Mhm.
do it. Because it's important for you to take care of your mental health as well as your physical health. And with everything that happened with COVID, we've had so many drastic changes being home versus having the opportunity to go out and have lunch with your girlfriends versus being able to just sit in your backyard and have your friends over for dinner, whatever it is, all of those things have changed. And this has become the new normal. And sometimes with change, we need a little bit of extra TLC, and we need to take the time to sit and say, you know what, I need to take 5 minutes for myself. Let your kids sit in the bathtub 5 more minutes and meditate for 5 minutes if you need to. Let your kids play outside 5 more minutes and sit down and eat an apple before you get their dinner together. Whatever it is that you need to do to take care of your mental health, it is important and it's critical for you to do so. The better your mental health is, the better that you're feeling, the better you can be for everyone around you.
I think that's a good word for not only women, but for men too, to be mindful, of mental health and just taking a moment, because we can, feel like we're on a treadmill, right? And just continuing to go. And if we're not careful, I mean, when do we slow down, right?
Yeah,
And so forth. So thank you for that perspective. I hope that is something that can help someone. And it's been really, good having an opportunity to have this conversation. And
thank you.
obviously, I'll be able to speak to you offline, as well too. But I think it was good to have a discussion like this, because I feel like you have a lot that you bring to the table, not only
Thank
as a
you.
mom, not only as a wife, but just as importantly, with your